All right, so our dough has been rising for the bulk rise, which has been about 5 hours. If you get your timing down good, you'll have, if you start at 7:30 in the morning with your starter, let that rise for 4 hours, brings you to 11:30. You do have your 2 hours of your mixing of the dough and the stretch and folds, brings you to 1:30. And then another 5 hours for a bulk rise, brings you to about 6:30. Shape your dough, let it sit on the counter for an hour to 7:30. Put it in the fridge overnight for 12 hours, and you're gonna bake it the next morning. So that's kind of how your timing would go if you start early in the morning. So I've got my dough, so it's definitely doubled in size. And we're gonna get this into our Banneton basket. If you don't have a Banneton basket, you can use a cloth-lined bowl. You're gonna have to make sure you dust these though. You wanna dust them with a rice flour. If you try to dust it with regular flour, your dough is gonna still try to stick to that because it's got the gluten in it. With the rice flour, it's not going to stick. So you'll wanna make sure you generously dust your Banneton basket or your cloth. Otherwise that it's just gonna stick and you're not gonna be able to get your dough out the next day. So we want to dust that really well. Put that to the side. And now we're gonna shape our loaf. This is the time when we're finally going to use some flour. So I'm going to get some flour on my counter here, because otherwise it's going to stick quite a bit to my counter. So you're going to take out your dough. And it's going to be quite sticky, so a little bit on top. You're going to probably have a few really big air bubbles in here. So if you just be gentle though, we don't want to take out too much of the air. We just want to get some of those big ones out of our dough. And you'll still find them in as we're shaping it. We'll just pop those. And now we're going to do 4 folds again. This one is going to be a fold up the bottom and over from one side. And we're going to fold over from the other side. And then we're going to take this top end and we're going to roll it all the way around to the back and turn that side down. Now we're going to smooth everything out. This is where you're going to do a little bit of stretching. So you want the dough to stick to your counter a little bit. We're just going to gently turn our ball and we're just going to gently roll it. It's going to start to grip the counter once the flour gets worked in a little bit. So we're just turning and we're starting to roll. We're going to try and roll this back a little bit. And you can hear there's still some big bubbles in there. Just pop them as they come up because they will work their way up to the top again. So we're just trying to make a nice smooth ball on the top here. Turning and you're rolling. So what you're doing is you're making all the seam come down to the bottom here and having the top nice and smooth. Starting to grip the counter a little bit better now because that flour is worked in. If you see those bigger air pockets, still pop those. All right, it's looking good. You don't want to overwork this dough. We're just being very gentle with it. All right. All right, so we've got a nice smooth ball. And now we're going to put it in the Banneton basket, but we're going to put it in upside down. Because the next day we flip it back out again. So you want the smooth side to be the top of your bread, and it's going to look really nice when it comes out of the oven. So we're going to make sure we put that in upside down. So that now that seam where it brought all together is down on the bottom here. Just dust this with some regular flour because we're going to cover this again. And we don't want this because this will rise up a little bit more yet. So we're going to leave it on the counter for an hour. And we don't want our plastic bag to stick to it. So we're going to leave this on the counter for another hour just because we just took some of the air out of it by working with the dough, and we want that to come up a little bit yet before we put it in the fridge overnight. Because when you put it in the fridge overnight, you really slow down the proofing stage, the rising stage, and what you're doing is you're giving the dough time to continue fermenting. By having your 24-hour period, you're giving the dough time to ferment, which gives that really nice sourdough flavor. Really good sourdough breads. I think a lot of places will even have it it's a 72-hour process. But I don't have the patience for that. I tried to do it in about 24 hours. So leave this on your counter for an hour, Put it in the fridge overnight, and tomorrow morning we're gonna bake this up.